You didn't tell me slides, Manny. Now I'm not prepared.
Nah, don't worry, man. Nobody's perfect. It's okay.
I think this one's going to be more of like us just kind of catching up and reigniting and connecting everybody and answering questions and stuff. Yeah,
exactly. We are live on Facebook and YouTube. Let's see. We already have one viewer here. This is the online version of the Podcasters Meetup. Can you guys hear me?
My fault. Yes.
All right.
This one's going to be more of like us just kind of.
Yeah, I've got you, Manny. So I'm watching it too.
Yeah, what I do is I put the tab on so I can we can see Jordan here. Jordan, it's all Laci's fault. She started this how long ago, Laci?
We did the Las Vegas Podcasters Meetup. We started it in 2015, and we held it every month, with the exception of two or three times we couldn't do it because we were traveling or whatever. I think until 2018. So I think that's right. Am I right? Was it 18 or 19?
Yeah.
18.
No,
18.
Yeah, you still haven't it when I left. So I've been gone 2 years now.
Oh my God. I can't believe it's been 2. It's just so crazy how fast time goes. But it genuinely was like it was like the most fun thing we did. We just loved it. We poured our hearts into it. We tried to share everything we knew for free because we know how tough it is, and there's always a guy out there trying to charge you for a course, which is great. But like, we just figured let's give some good some good free stuff back to our community, and we had a great time. We actually really miss it. We talk about it all the time.
Yeah, I went to a few of the meetups at the Innovation Center, and it was a very welcoming environment, and I love it.
Yeah.
You know, and that we have people watching us that just confirm that we have got good sound. I think we have Muriel. I hope.
Muriel, hi! She's so cool.
Do you
I
hear
love
us
her.
fine? Can you hear us? Is it good? The sound there? I don't know. Let's see. I hope so. And on Facebook, I don't see anyone making comments yet. So. All right. So the idea is to just we have a couple hours. Yeah, she can hear us. Perfect. Talk about and we had the perfect timing yesterday because someone actually asked on the group how to start, where to start, this kind of things. So I guess we can cover that too. Right? Cell phone. That's a great starting point. So we have another person. Nicholas is here too. All good, he said on Facebook. Perfect, awesome. So they can hear us on both YouTube and Facebook. So let's introduce ourselves, starting with Laci. She's the guilty one to start with, right? So she started this. So go ahead and introduce yourself, Laci.
Cool. All right. So Laci Cerrone, formerly a different last name. Things have changed a little bit. So for those of you who joined the group early on, my then partner, Chris Cerrone, and I started a podcast in 2014. He started it, actually, did a really great job growing it very, very quickly. And this was before Serial was out, and before really podcasting had kind of hit the market and everybody started paying attention. And we very proudly kind of grew that podcast in 9 months. I think we had 1 million downloads, and about 5 or 6 months later, we had another 1 million downloads. So we hit like 2 million downloads in about a 15-month period of time. And I think honestly, we got a little bit of a luck of streak. We were fortunate at the time to have my marketing background. I was director of marketing at Cirque du Soleil, and I had done direct marketing, throughout the city, and lots of marketing background. And he had a sales background and was in love with radio. So talk radio connected with all of those things kind of mashed together. I'll be honest, I don't think the show was amazing by any means. I didn't think it was really anything special other than us interviewing cool people. But for me, what I think was amazing was that we didn't give a crap, and we were willing to try anything and everything just to see what worked and what didn't. And we used it as a little bit of a crash test dummy of sorts. So we're very lucky, very fortunate, and super excited that we got to, dive into that community early on. And what a beautiful community it was and still is. Now, looking back, it's 2020. This is a few years back now. My, oh my, how far we've come is all I have to say from a podcasting perspective. It's humbling to see the number of podcasts that are being created. It's humbling to see so many people still interested in coming to me for questions and coming to you guys for questions. Family just got home. Welcome home, guys. And just see that hunger is still so alive, you know, like that it's not dying off and that people still want to tell their story or share with the world. So I just feel excited that, you know, there's still that hunger and that our group is still kind of sort of connected. We felt really bad that we had to stop doing the meetups, honestly, Chris and I, because our business really exploded and we got very fortunate with that. And so we had to focus on feeding our family and really focusing on that business was number one priority. So we now are at a place where it's kind of humming, so we can dip back in a little bit. And so I'm super appreciative to you, Manny, for just pulling this together, to you, Philip, to you, Lorianne, for being here today. Anything I can do to help with marketing, branding, how to tell the story, any of that, I'm all yours. Anything else these guys can probably cover, yeah.
A question here, Laci. When you started this, you did everything yourself, or you had like people helping you also?
Yeah, so we're for YouTube or for the
podcast.
Podcast. So for podcasting, we did everything ourselves. We didn't have a VA. We didn't do any of that. We were very, very hands-on. Chris was also very hands-on when he first started it without me, because he started it and I didn't join until 6 or 7 months later. So it was the Chris Cerrone show at one point, and then it became the Cerrone show. So yeah, no, we did it all ourselves. And I think that's something we should maybe talk about. I'd love to get your guys' opinion on that, just from a collective conversation. I'm a big believer that you need to get your hands dirty when you start a show, like when you start a show and when you're trying to create something, because I think the audience can feel that it's not all you, that you're not all in if you're not all in. What are your guys' thoughts?
Well, let's introduce ourselves, right? Lori, please.
Well, I'm biased because I am a VA.
I didn't say you shouldn't use a VA ever. I just think for that first 7 to 10 to 15 episodes, just to get your hands dirty, just to know what you're doing. Like, I would love to be able to hire a VA, but for me, it's like, I need to know how to do it so I know how to instruct you or tell you or get guidance, you know, have that conversation. So just when you're starting a show or when you're kicking it off, that's what I'm really speaking about. The first, like I said, 7, 10, 15, 20 episodes, whatever that looks like, and then start to automate and try to get easier. But yeah, we also had 2 of us, which certainly helped a little bit.
Alrighty.
What are your thoughts, Phil?
I think if you're not genuine, people see through it. I also think there's so many people who've jumped into the game since I went to that very first meetup that it's become saturated. And if your content, it doesn't matter your quality, it matters your content. If your content's manure, I'm going to bounce. I'm going to find 50 more of you exactly like you, exact same subject. I'm going to bounce. So when you're thinking about it, yes, it's great to grow to a point where you need a VA, and it's great to grow to a point when you need $50,000 worth of gear. But you got to start off slow. And the first thing you need to worry about before I worry about buying $500 mics is having quality content. And I think it's where so many people today are missing it. Just like back in the day when I started helping, because I'm a technical person. So when, you know, in the group, people would say, you know, can you help? Sure. They, you know, a lot of people, many wanted to go out and spend a few $1,000s on gear. I'm like, why? You know, worry more about your content first. And that was a huge issue that I think so many people were missing on, not getting their thoughts in the right place. And I see it today in different groups like Podbean's Facebook group and stuff. People are coming out and they're wanting to know why they've been up for a month, why they don't have 50,000 listeners. Well, there could be any number of reasons. First of all, you have to put the work in. But what's your content really like? Well, my mom loves it. Yeah, my mom loved everything I did too. So,
yeah. What do you think, Lorianne? And what are you seeing as far as that goes, as far as being a VA and joining people either at the beginning, middle, or way deep into it? I mean, are you seeing kind of the same trend?
Yeah, I definitely think so. And I think, you know, for a long time, the technology was the barrier for people to get started. And now it's not, you know, like Philip motioned earlier, all you really need is your phone. Yeah. Like you could get started at the end of this meeting, just download Anchor or Podbean and just go. I mean, if you can spend the money and you want to, yeah, you can do that too. But the technology is definitely not the barrier anymore. But yeah, you still need to have content that people want to listen to.
Yeah. How about you, Manny?
Yeah, I'm how can I say? I wear many hats, so I like to try new things. I've been doing websites since 1993. In 1999, I was invited to relocate here to the U.S., and I became a U.S. citizen here and since 2007, I've been working for myself, and I did a TV production back in the day, so I think it was kind of easy for me to understand about like audio quality, the visual, and all that. So when I did I did a lot of production for YouTube for podcasting. I took a huge hiatus, and now I'm back. My girlfriend, she's starting a podcast in Brazil, and I'm helping her out. And then that's when I went to one of the meetups you did at the Innovation Center. And I think one problem that I see when you're starting this is you try to do it like perfect, and you never finish.
Never.
So that's kind of like I'm guilty on that too, because my girlfriend didn't launch yet her pilot yet, her first episode, because she's trying to be perfect and everything and about everything. So yeah, I told her, just have a drink and relax and let it go.
So Manny, to me, the idea of a perfect podcast is probably different 90% of the other people, because again, I come back from the technology side. Mm-hmm. And the only thing to me that means perfect in a podcast is a lack of uhs, ums, and ahs. Yeah, right. Those are fillers that everybody uses when they speak. I use it all the time. Now that I haven't been producing a podcast for a little while because of all my family issues, I sit here and I catch myself speaking. But before, when I was doing an episode a month, I was really hard on myself in my regular speech to train myself. Don't use filler words. And that's the only part of being perfect. The dog barking in the background. Laci had some great stories about things happening in the background that actually helped the podcast along, the episode along.
Yeah.
But to me, the perfect thing is how you're presenting. Yes, bad audio is bad. Bad video, if you're using video, is bad. Bad lighting is bad. Those are things you can overcome with good content, though. You can't do them. You can't do them for 10 or 12 episodes, but one episode I can forgive.
Sorry to interrupt you. I was just going to say, I think there's a difference between starting and getting your hands dirty and getting involved from the beginning, if you know how to do it, or starting and trying to learn how to be an audio editor or learn how to be this. That doesn't make any sense. But I do think you need to have a basic understanding of how audio quality should sound, what a VA might help you with, or what an audio editor might help you with, so that you know how to instruct. But also, I don't think it's smart to go learn how to do video to then be able to do video. I think you need to learn how to create the content and have the story to tell. And then if you need to get the help, but at least have that basic understanding. It's super important, because there's way too many people looking for the easy route, the quick win, the silver bullet of, I'll just pay somebody to do it and then I'll be a millionaire because I've got this great show. No, people can tell if you're putting your own time and energy into it, or if you're having it produced for you. And that doesn't really include assistance from an organizational standpoint or whatever. So that's my take.
Jumping to a question here, but actually let me remind people that we do have a presentation ready here from Lorianne, and but let's just reply to this one here. Muriel, she's asking about do you need to get to a certain level for the show to be found on iTunes? I search with keywords I use in my episodes, and it doesn't work. So that's another thing too. You have to know a lot about marketing, right? Not only about creating the content.
Yeah, I mean, content, you have to be able to talk about the content Chris came up with this, for like a year without getting bored of it, right? You have to have enough content to fill a year's worth of shows. So if it's an hour show or a 10-minute show each week, whatever that looks like, spread it across the year. Do you have enough? If you don't have enough, you might want to broaden your spectrum. You might want to, or go more niche, one or the other. But from a level, I don't know, because I've been out of it for a minute. There's Chris. He just walked in.
Chris. Hey. It's his fault too.
Yeah, no, it's his fault.
Yeah, it's his fault. But anyway, I've been out of it for a minute, so I'm gonna have to ask you guys, because we haven't. We produce shows for brands and celebrities and stuff right now, but we're more very white label, very on the back end. And their goal is to not become millionaires or sell a course. Their goal is to just broaden their brand's reach. So it's tough for me to know the answer. Do you guys know the answer to Muriel's question?
So again, this is a little bit of technical land. iTunes changed their stuff a few years ago, and I'm sure Chris is aware of that pretty well. But iTunes, they're weird, and they don't really follow the rules that they originally produced. So they're kind of weird with keywords. Everybody else still uses them. And truthfully, nowadays, I would almost want to be on other platforms than just iTunes because they've changed stuff so much. The one I preferred before I kind of had to step away was Spotify, even though it was fairly fresh. Because if I'm on Spotify, I know I can reach every device. I'm sitting here, I've got the Facebook feed going on my tablet. It has Spotify. My phone has Spotify. iPhones carry Spotify. So don't be overly concerned about one particular platform. And again, much like you were talking about how Chris said about your content, it's something I developed off that. How many shows do you want to produce? You want to do one a month, one a week, or one a day? If you want to do one a month, if you can't come up with 24 fresh ideas, then you're not doing it right. And my podcast was sports based, so I had weekly what was happening. But if I didn't know my calendar well enough to set it out, and it's a very niche sport, but if I didn't have my calendar well enough to set out that I knew for 24 months what I was doing something wrong.
Yeah, I agree. All right. So, Lorianne, do you want to take over and start your presentation?
Sure.
And we continue the discussion.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye on the
Did I kill the presentation by telling people they need to do their own stuff from the beginning?
Oh, no, not at all. No.
I'm going to mute so you don't have to hear my dog.
The VA.
Yeah, I'm muting here all the time, too, because I have 2 dogs here. They're barking and making noises.
Interference is never a bad thing, in my opinion. But
right.
So normally I do this for an hour or an hour and a half, but I've been unwell, so hopefully my voice holds up, and I cut it down a little bit. I took out a lot of the really technical nuts and bolts stuff. If you guys want to hear about how I organize things or how I automate things, we could totally do that in the future, but this is really just see, I'm doing it, Bill. My high school drama teacher would be so sad. She would always stop us if we said, she'd stop us and be like, no, I don't know. And we'd have to start over. So here we go. Getting started podcasting. Like I said earlier, it's easier than you think. My mouse is asleep. So a few things I'm going to go over are reasons to start, just basic recording and equipment, really quick on editing, hosting, launch tips, and repurposing your content. Because you spend a lot of time on it, you should repurpose it. So about me, I didn't tell you guys before, but my background is I have a BFA in design technical theater. That's why I moved to Las Vegas. I have 20 years in entertainment, and I love all things tech related, anything that saves time and energy, and you can template it or automate it. I'm all about that. I do come from a lighting background, not an audio background, though. So I hope you guys still like me.
I love that you have a technical theater background, because that means you're organized and you know how to put things together and processes and sequences together. So I'm going to be calling you when we're done.
Yes. And I'm actually really glad I made the switch out of the entertainment industry, but my heart goes out to everyone still in the industry. It's totally heartbreaking right now. But yeah, that's me a long time ago, running shows. So, wrong screen. So a few stats about podcasting. These are reasons why you would want to start a podcast. 50% of U.S. households are podcast fans. I won't read them all to you. You guys can read them. And I can always send my slides to anybody that wants them. But the main point here is the demographics. 54% of podcast listeners are male, and their ages lie between 12 and 24 and 25 and 54. So if your target demographic is in one of those categories, podcasting is probably a really good idea for you. And the other important stat to note is that podcast listeners are loyal, affluent, and educated. So if you're trying to use your podcast to promote your product or to monetize it, your podcast listeners are more likely to consider a brand advertised on a podcast or to actually purchase a product that they hear from a podcast. Like, I don't know about you guys, but I have an ad blocker on my computer, so I never see those ads. But if I'm listening to a podcast, yeah, I'll stop and listen to that. You can't really block that out. So some other reasons to start: low cost of entry. Here you go. You can start right here, like Philip said. It's an easy way to establish yourself as an authority, promote your products and services, build your audience. Less competition than blogging. I know a lot of people hear that blogging is the way to get your SEO up or your search engine optimization. For every one podcast that's produced, 1,000 blogs are produced. So there's a lot of competition as opposed to a podcast. You also have the ability to monetize, and really my personal favorite is the ability to repurpose your content in pretty much an endless amount of ways. So I put together just a quick list of different software you can use. I'm a big fan of free. I know a lot of people also enjoy free. So just a few quick programs you might already be using: Google Hangouts, Skype, Zoom. Zoom audio quality isn't as good, especially right now that the whole entire planet is on Zoom. But there are tricks and tips if you want to use Zoom. Free programs that are audio only: Audacity, huge, widely popular in the podcast community; Anchor FM, which is we've mentioned briefly a few times, but it's actually run by Spotify. It's an app you can get on your phone, and you can do everything to start your podcast from Anchor. If you have a Mac, GarageBand's already built in. You don't need to reinvent the wheel if you've already got it. Just use what you have. Or if you're more technically inclined, you could do something like Adobe Audition. And if you want to do like a multicast like this, there are other programs where you can have people call in or have multiple hosts, especially now that we're all social distancing. If you have a co-host, they live somewhere else, you can use a service like Ringer or Squadcast.
Adding here really quick, we are using a software called StreamYard. They do have a free version where you can broadcast only to, I think, one destination. But if you upgrade your plan, you could have like multiple destinations like we are doing right now. We are broadcasting to Facebook and to YouTube at the same time. And there is a level up where you can have up to 5 different channels, which is super cool too. So sorry, Lorian.
Oh, no, great. And this is the first time I've used StreamYard, and it's awesome. This is really cool. I need to recommend this. I won't go through these, but like I said, I can send you guys my slides if you want. But I mean, you can use your phone for sure, but you can get a starter mic for $40 if you really want one. You find you're serious and you want a different external mic. And then you can spend up to however much you want. The difference is basically you need to know which connector you want to use. If you're going to use USB and just plug directly into your computer, or if you want what's called an XLR, which is a 3-pin connector. And if you do use an XLR connector, you'll need some other device to convert it into, to connect to your laptop. So some of those things are like a USB interface. It's you plug you would plug your XLR cables into that, and then USB to your computer, or get a mixer, which is getting a little bit more technical, but you can get smaller mixers that are only 2 channels and watch YouTube videos on how to set them up. It's really not as scary. Some other accessories you might need: headphones, especially if you're doing interviews. You want to have your headphones on so you don't get that feedback from the other person's audio. A mounting arm, which is like this, thing here, and a shock mount. So if like somebody bumps your desk or any of that, you don't get any of that vibration. And then the pop filter just for cleaning up your audio just a little bit. Any questions so far? Editing software, pretty much the same list as before. with free versions. The weird one I put in here is kind of new. It's called Descript, and I throw it in here because it's really interesting. It will take your audio and automatically make a transcript of it. The transcript kind of sucks. I wouldn't use it for the transcript, but you can select the words in the transcript and edit your audio from there. So you could just highlight the and delete it, and actually you can actually go through and tell it to delete all the ums. But so instead of most audio softwares, you edit the waveform, and that can be really like a barrier to some people. They're afraid of the waveform. This, you're just editing the audio. It's really interesting, and it's rather new, and they've just been developing it lately, and I'm kind of really excited about it. And then
if I can put some information in real quick. If you're starting any of these new platforms, please, 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 please use YouTube to learn them. It's real easy to mess up, and I've seen people erase an hour-long conversation. I don't think it was going to be that when they were done editing. But go to YouTube, learn how to use it, make a bunch of practice recordings. Yeah, even if you're on something simple like Anchor on your cell phone, practice a little bit. Sorry.
Sorry, that was a good one.
Yeah, that's great advice. Yeah, practice and save often. Multiple backups. And most of these platforms as well, now that everyone's stuck at home, they're doing a lot of their own education and webinars and that sort of thing. For transcripts, like I said, Descript is built in. Otter AI, I believe, is free. And Rev and Timmy have, they're very low cost. A few other programs you might want to look into are ID3 Editor. This is what you use to put all your tags in, like all the information that your stereo reads or your iPhone reads, all of your title, your episode number, that sort of thing. And then if you're looking for music or sound effects that are royalty free, Audio Jungle, the Music Bakery, and Pond5 are good resources for those. And you also want to check, sometimes, even though they're royalty free, sometimes the license doesn't allow use in a podcast. So you just double check, but you can find some low cost options there. Or if you're
also attached to that, YouTube, if you create a creator's account, they also have free music. Again, you do have to make sure that it's free.
Mm-hmm. And so hosting, host platforms that we've mentioned a few, like Anchor and Podbean, you need those for your files to live somewhere else so people can access them. The really, really important part is the host will submit your podcast to multiple platforms, and that's what we want. Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher, all of the platforms. I listen on Spotify. Like Philip says, it's everywhere. I can tell.
Me too.
I won't say the words right now, but I can tell my smart speaker, and she would play stuff for me. I don't want to start right now. The other important things that a host can provide to you are analytics. Who's listening? How many people are listening? What are your downloads like? And they can also provide monetization opportunities. You know, a lot of people start their podcast as a hobby, and that's great, but you can make money off of it, and those opportunities are out there. For beginners, or if you're not really technically inclined, I lean towards Anchor as my recommendation. Like I said, it's free. It distributes to Apple Podcasts, Google, Spotify, and Stitcher because it is it's part of the Spotify brand. You have unlimited storage. You can record and edit directly in Anchor on your phone. I wouldn't, but you can. There are monetization opportunities already built into Anchor. It does have limited built-in editing, and I really recommend that you back up your files somewhere outside of Anchor. And if you're not careful, Anchor will add an ad to your post roll to the end. Well, that triggered my Google for some reason. So If you don't want to have an ad, you just have to make sure your settings are set up. But yeah, this is, if you just want to get started tonight, you could make an Anchor account and go. If you're more technical or you want to do this as more of a hobby, you already have an existing website, I recommend Libsyn. It's the OG of podcasting host. Starts at $5 per month. It distributes to all the platforms you could ever imagine. And it also integrates, if you have a WordPress website, there's a plugin for Libsyn. Blueberry is also another good one if you have a WordPress website. There's monetization opportunities through Sponsorship Match, or you can, it has a built-in sort of like you could set up your own Patreon with Libsyn. You could make your bonus episodes, put them behind a paywall, or, access to your back catalog or anything like that. You can do that already built in with Libsyn. Oh, social media. Any questions so far? All right. You should make graphics to promote your latest episodes. And we all get scared because we hear you need to be on all the places. You don't. Pick 2, and they need to be 2 that your target audience hangs out at. So if you have, say, a podcast about fashion, unless it's about the fashion industry, LinkedIn's probably not the best choice. Maybe Instagram. So just pick 2 that you can be consistent with and that your target audience will be hanging out on. Use different images or colors than your primary logo to mix it up. You can use your guest headshot or pull a quote from the episode, and make a template and just use that every time. Saves you time, and it also makes your brand consistent. Matthew says he loves Blueberry. I need to try Blueberry. Speaking of social media, there's a new kid on the block called an audiogram. And you might be going, what the heck is an audiogram? It's basically a cross between a GIF and a video. It's an image with an audio overlay. So it's like a more interactive. You could put like a little teaser in there, like a 1-minute teaser or something. Let's see if it'll play. I think it will. This is one I just... So I don't know. Can you guys hear my audio? But it would play this, and it's cool. I just borrowed that one from the Wave website. And you need a special program to do that, either Wave or Headliner. But you can make an audiogram and then post that to all the social media platforms as well. It works really great on Instagram and Twitter, Facebook ads.
That's cool.
Go, yeah. I'm really excited about audiograms. Repurposing. I'm getting towards the end here. Hope you guys are staying in there. Repurposing, I think, is the most important part, because podcasting is hard and you spend a lot of time. There's a lot of time and effort investing into it. So don't waste that gold mine of content. You can create a blog post from the transcript. You can pen that to Pinterest. People think Pinterest is more social media. It's actually a search engine. I think it ranks like 4th after Google and YouTube, and then Bing or something. And that's evergreen content, really, that you can do it one time and it's still out there generating interest for you. You can upload your video to YouTube as well. You can also create an opt-in if you're trying to grow your email list. If I was going to create an opt-in for this, I'd be like, 5 tools you need to get started podcasting now, and we would trade that for your email address. So it's a great way to tie that into your podcast. And then I'm going to wrap up here shortly, but I just have some basic tips on things you should think about before you start your podcast. If you can, work on building your audience before. If you already have a blog, an email list, a business page, or just your own personal page, if it's just going to be a hobby, like post pictures of you setting up your studio, or just getting ready, just to build that hype so other people are excited about your podcast as well. If you're not a graphic designer or into that sort of thing, have a professional design your logo. This is like your calling card on all the platforms, and they're so tiny that you want it to stand out and you want people to be interested in. Those
Lori,
yeah.
I like just real quick to that point. Most of the people I have seen with issues getting onto iTunes, that was their issue right there. Their logo was not sized right, or something was wrong with their logo, and iTunes won't tell you it's wrong. They just won't accept it. Most of your publishers will tell you, but as you're taking days and you're becoming frustrated when that happens. So that's a very important part.
Oh, I'm writing that down. But those are the current dimensions as of today. Could be different tomorrow. You know how these guys are, but they are today. Another great way to promote your podcast is to be a guest on other people's podcasts. It's just, you just go on, you talk about whatever, and then they'll promote your podcast as well. You usually get a chance to do your spiel, hey, come listen to my podcast, or hey, my podcast is launching next month. Look out for it. This is a good trick as well. Publish a little teaser episode a week to 10 days before your launch, just so you get. It takes a while sometimes, like Philip was saying, to get approved to be on iTunes or to get your feeds up. So you don't want to say to everyone, hey, I'm launching on this day, and then it's not approved and you don't have anything to show. So if you do that teaser episode, that makes sure you get on there, and then launch day you can go ahead and schedule the rest of your episodes. Which brings me to my other point. If you're going to launch, you should have at least 3 episodes when you launch, because you want people to get hooked.
Can I interrupt you for a second? Sorry.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
I think that's amazing advice. Everything you're saying so far, I'm nodding. I'm like, yeah, I feel like my head's going to pop off. So you're doing great. I think you should pre-record at least 7. Frankly, I say 12 to 15, but I do agree. You launch with 3 because you want people, to your point, to like get addicted and want to, like Netflix, you want to see what's next and next. But if you want to really make it past that freshman 7, where people don't normally make it past, definitely try to pre-record at least more than 7 if you can. But launching with 3 is great.
Oh, yeah.
Did I jump ahead? Were you already going to talk about that?
Yeah, I think batching's on the next slide, because I'm a huge fan of batching.
Strike that. No. I'm going to mention it in a minute. Shoot.
No worries. No, it's great. But yeah, at least publish a minimum with 3 so people can binge. And then after that, go to your regular schedule. Whatever your regular schedule is going to be, whatever works for you. If it's daily, if it's weekly, if it's monthly, as long as you're consistent, that will help.
Consistency is the big key.
Mm-hmm. And if you're trying to get on iTunes New and Noteworthy, that is only the first 8 weeks that you're published. And to do that, you need to get as many downloads in that time as possible and have as many reviews. So if you only have 1 episode, you've already limited the number of downloads you can have. So why not try to like front load that a little bit and, have as many episodes available as possible, or do your entire season. I know. There's options. Oh, why do you want to be on iTunes New and Noteworthy? Because it's right there on the front page. Like, that is prime real estate. And you get like the first 8 without scrolling. Prime real estate. And there's different categories. There's New and Noteworthy overall, and then New and Noteworthy in each category your podcast is under. So you can rank in all 4, really. That would be really helpful. Yeah, here we go. Record your episode in batches if you can. I highly recommend batching, especially if you think you'll have a problem with being consistent or your time management. Have your guests lined up in advance or a prospective list of guests already when you do your next batch. Have your publishing schedule and keep to it. My recommendation is try to keep your episodes under an hour. Most people listen to the podcast in the car at the gym, and you don't want to leave them hanging, you know? Have episodes scheduled in advance or ready to publish at least twice for whatever your schedule is. So if you post once a month, have 2 months scheduled just in case something like a global pandemic happens and then you can't publish. You have your back, you're already ahead of it. Or if you publish once a week, have 2 weeks already in the can that you can push out. And right now, the trend is that if you publish earlier in the week, it gets more downloads. That's the current trend. It could change, but right now more people listen to podcasts earlier in the week than later. So I think that's the end of the line. It is. That's me. So that's all my information. Any questions?
I'm curious to see
fast and dirty though.
what is Laci's opinion on the podcast length. Like, what do you think, Laci, about like is 30, 40 pretty much the standard?
From a length perspective, Chris and I used to always kind of preach this pretty loudly. Sorry, I don't know what's going on with my computer. It has to be, your content length should be as long as it needs to be to tell the story. So if you've got something to share and it takes 12 minutes to do so, cool, do it in 12 minutes. If it takes an hour and a half, do it in an hour and a half. What matters is that you're telling the story appropriately. We had podcasts that were 5, 6, 7 hours long. I'm kidding. We had podcasts that were like 2 hours long. And then we would have podcasts that were like 20 minutes. So it really ranged, and it just really mattered about, how into the conversation you are. Let your listener be like a fly on the wall in the background. Let them feel like they're sitting in that coffee shop with you, chatting with the person that you're talking to, or talking to you if you're doing a single solo kind of thing. But there really isn't a limit. I know there's all these things back in the day that they used to say 22 minutes or 17 minutes was drive time, and you got to make sure you fit within drive time.
Oops, you got mute.
Did I go mute? Sorry about that.
Yeah.
We all know that life is different now than it was when podcasting started to kick off, and people don't just listen when they're driving anymore or at the gym. They listen throughout the day at work. They listen on their radio in the car. They listen all the time. So while they're doing the dishes and all of that. So, if they like your content, they're going to listen. Joe Rogan does 4-hour long shows, right? So if they like your content, it's going to listen. There's no magic number, in my opinion.
So one other thing about that too, not only is it your content is what matters. So if you need to go long, you go long. If you stay short, you stay short. The thing about it is the longer your content rolls out, and this is what Gary Vee does. He has you see all these little clips from him, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever. That's all off 2+ hours worth of video that's been done. So that's not, he sat there and he recorded, his big thing now is, 65 things a day. That's not really what he's doing. He's recording 1 or 2 things a day, and then he's just clipping it down into little pieces. So, what you record, again, your content is king. If you're messing it up, nothing else matters. But if you can also, when you're doing it, so again, if you need 30 minutes, you got 30 minutes. If you need 2 hours, you have 2 hours. If you go longer, think about points and times in there where you can clip down to a 3 or 4 minute section and deliver it as a separate piece of content.
Or make it an audiogram.
Well, to me, the audiogram should be one of the first things, should be your first, however long, 30 seconds of the show.
All right.
And how about the schedule? You think it doesn't matter, like if you do weekly, monthly, daily? What do you think?
When we first started, we did 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and I'm almost positive that was one of the largest pushes towards growing our show so quickly. I just think the more content, volume of content is what matters, but that's really hard to keep up with. I mean, we made it our full-time job after a while because it's so hard. So I like weekly. I don't know. What about you guys?
I just think, whatever it is you can be consistent with. If you can post consistently 3 times a week, go for it. I mean, yeah, you will get more downloads, you will grow faster. But if you get people hooked on you posting 3 times a week and then you disappear, your audience is going to disappear. So to me, it's just consistency.
I like to tell everybody when you're doing a podcast, everybody thinks starting a podcast is the hardest thing to do. And all you need is this little thing with some apps. Starting a podcast is super simple. Keeping it going, that's a whole other game. Keeping a podcast running. I ran mine from that first meeting. So for 3 years, a little over 3 years, that is tough. And I only did monthly. So that's where I came up with telling people, whatever you're wanting to do, if you're wanting to do a monthly show, can you come up with 24 unique ideas? You want to do a daily show? I ruin a lot of people with that one. I'm like, fine, a daily show. Can you come up with 730 unique ideas to push out to your customer? And oh, by the way, if you're doing a daily show, that's not a 10 or 15 minute show now. You're doing a much longer show. Now, can you do an hour show on that subject? And a lot of people, when you start talking those kind of numbers, a lot of people start thinking, can you come up with 730 hours of unique content? That's not easy. That is not easy.
Yeah. Well, I think it depends on the audience, right? Because it's sports, like you said, you did sports, right? You do rodeos, right? So yes. I like to talk a lot about soccer. So they usually have games on Wednesday and Sundays. So we could do it easily, twice per week, right? But like, let's say if you will have a podcast about like a horror show or something like we have, it's very popular, right? When you talk about those terrors and horror shows and
Robert Crandall.
Yeah, he does
a really good show about.
He does weekly or monthly? Do you know?
I don't know, Laci. Do you know that one?
No.
He's doing
I can't remember. I think it's a couple times a month. I don't think it's weekly. I can't remember, actually. I'm sorry. That's so bad. I haven't listened to a show in a minute.
Yeah, and that brings me to another question too. Do you think any subject could fit to a podcast?
Yes.
Or not?
Yes.
Yeah, I do. I think, yeah. I mean, I don't even need to explain it. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Because some subjects gets a lot more traction, I guess, like business. A lot of people want to listen to business podcasting, and fashion, and and those other. If you go see the categories on Spotify, it's interesting, how prolific those are, compared to other stuff. So I guess what you really have to do is you have to enjoy what you're doing, like what you really like, right? If you like rodeos, if you like business, if you like soccer. Because people, you're gonna hook with these people. It's like the people that you actually would have a conversation in a bar or in a public space or in a park or something. You would talk to him. So now you're talking online or on a podcast or something like that, right? So what do you guys think?
I'll jump in, and then I'd love to hear what you guys think. But when we used to talk about how to pick your subject, and people would come to us with some just awesome ideas, and we were like, oh my god, that's going to be an amazing hit show, that's awesome. And then what we realized was the person was just more excited about talking about doing a show rather than actually doing a show. So it was pretty heartbreaking, because they would pitch us these ideas, and Chris and I would be like, yeah, this is amazing, we'll give you advice, and then they would do nothing with it. And I think it's because they were trying to either fill a hole or fill the checkbox of what everybody else tells them they should do versus what's really natural and inherent to who they are. So I'm always a big fan of telling people, like, yes, you should do your research. Yes, you should understand what your competition is. But there's also a component of, if you put your earmuffs on and you put your blinders on and you just proceed forward and you put your head down and you put the work and time and effort in, then it'll be seen and heard. I mean, if you're producing something that's coming from the heart, it'll be seen and heard. You just have to work a little harder if it might not be a subject everybody's into. But at the end of the day, you have to do something that you genuinely care about, you're genuinely interested in, not try to backfill it to, I'm supposed to talk about business because that's what everybody's looking for online, and that's how I'm going to make $1 million. Like, podcasts aren't here to make $1 million for you. They're here to help you express yourself, tell a story, communicate to the world, create content. Could it support a business? Sure. But nobody should go into this saying, I'm going to build a podcast business empire. Go into it softly, see if it's going to dance with you and work. And then from there, play with it. And also, sometimes people don't know what they want to talk about, but they know when they want to talk. So my guidance to them is, listen, pick 5 things you're really passionate about. Pick 3 things, and then start to introduce them to the show. So maybe your show is more about you. The show is you, and here's my brain on audio or on video or however you're doing it. And that gives you the chance to kind of shift from one thing to the next and maybe change and evolve. What I don't like, or I feel bad for, is when I see people go, well, I'm going to start the cooking with almond flour only podcast, right? Or whatever the hell it is. It is like the niche of the niche of the niche. They found out they can do 12, full shows, once a month shows for that. They've got enough content in their brain, but it gets monotonous at some point, and they go, well, this doesn't allow me to like move and grow. Maybe they get into cooking with a different kind of yeast later. Maybe they like cooking with cherries, and they can't add it to their weird podcast because their podcast name is way too niche, right? So I'm a big believer in dabble with it, play with it, figure out what you're really about, and maybe make the show less specific and targeted until you really know what you're doing. And then if you really know what you're doing and you're like, oh yeah, this is my jam, cooking with yeast flour, I don't even know what the hell yeast or flour is the same thing. I'm just making up, but cooking with blah, whatever is that's my jam. I'm never going to not want to talk about that. Like me, I could do a show about living in your best Las Vegas life and building a life here for the rest of my life. Because I've already been talking about it since I was 9. I will literally never run out of topics to talk about. But, if I could take it as the Laci Cerrone show for a couple of episodes. And once I feel like, okay, I found my niche, you can rebrand it, you can redo it, you can change your SEO, you can really get the vibe and get the juices flowing from what's out there to get you the attention you need. But figure it out first. Be okay with making mistakes in front of people. Be okay with altering the plan. Just make sure you're taking your listeners on for the ride.
So, real quick to answer Matt's question, what's the typical number of downloads per week? It varies. Your mileage varies. Are you, and it's a matter of how much time and effort you put into marketing. So, Matt, I know you do a lot of marketing. You're really heavy good with SEO information. So it really depends on there. And, Laci and Chris told us something when we first began, and I was like, that doesn't sound right, but they're experts. So, yeah. But that was, they thought some of their best shows didn't get listened to. And some of the shows that they thought were ducks, everybody liked the quack. I have seen that. I've got a show right now. It's probably one of my worst shows I ever recorded. Lots of ahs and ums, and it sounds like I'm drunk, and I don't drink. Right. And that show, still to this day, I'm getting 3-4 downloads a week on it. And some of my best shows, they were 45 minutes long. I had killer content. I had interviews in there. I've had 2 downloads ever, and I think they were both me.
So that's another question. Do you think the interview podcasts do better than just conversation or just presenting something?
It depends on your subject, right? So if I'm talking about business, if I'm back in Vegas and I'm talking about business, I can't carry that conversation because I've never owned a business in Las Vegas. If I'm in Vegas and I want to talk about web design businesses, I know web design, I know the business aspect of it, but why would I carry the conversation by myself, Manny, when I got people like you and Russ Aaron and Matt? They can come in. You guys know a lot more than I do. You guys can put me over. Using a wrestling term, you guys can come in. You can put me over as an expert.
Also, you're so short, man. You're good.
So why would I? It really depends on what you're doing. So when I was doing rodeo, I'd only get a few interviews a year. The rest of the time, I'm talking about the news and the event. I'm talking about standings and all that. But yeah, for sure, I had 3 awesome interviews lined out in it. I had some of the best engineering I'd ever done with a podcast. I had video on it, and I've literally had that many downloads. I have one where it's 15 minutes and it's ahs and ums, and I can't hardly read the script because I don't really script per se, but I outline everything I'm talking about. I can't read it. My mom actually listened to it. And she goes, "Are you drunk?" Well, I must be, because man, that's horrible. But I still had to publish it. I published it, and I'm getting, 3 years later, I'm still getting, 3, 4, 5 downloads a month.
Yeah, I don't know if
you never know what you're going to get.
Yeah, I don't know if this problem. Sorry,
I'm interrupting. I'm sorry, guys.
Like a great interviewer, great person, high expectations, but it's so tough to take anything out of. Have you had that experience, and what you did to, overcome that problem. I try to like interview like, oh, this guy's gonna be awesome. He's he knows so much about this, and then it was just like 2-3 words responses. So it was really hard to get information out of him. So how do you do it?
I think that might be a testament, though, to the authenticity that's really needed in the podcasting world. I like ums and ahs. I don't want it to sound like I'm listening to a robot. I understand the need to pay attention to how you speak so that it's not redundant. But I definitely think that, from a subject matter perspective, from a downloads number perspective, that authenticity wins every day. And people want to feel like they're listening to a real human. That's what's working in my business. That's what works online. That's what works on social media. The minute they feel like they're being too produced or it's too flashy, they're out, So I agree with kind of the hybrid of that. But yeah, I don't know. What about you, Lorianne?
Oh, I definitely agree. I think if you try to do what you think your audience wants to hear, it's not what they want to hear. Like, and like you said, they'll bail, and it's never what you expect. It's going to be like your hit. It's never like your favorite. Your audience doesn't care what your favorite is. They're going to pick their favorite, and it's usually something you were like, oh, that turd I put up. Oh, they love that.
Exactly.
I did a show about how to make a to-do list. Called it the brain dump episode because people were dying to find out how me and Chris stayed so organized, and really it's how I stayed so organized, not Chris. But anyway. And I did it. I think we called it the Brain Dump Show. It might even still be live. I have no idea. And it was probably by far one of our most popular episodes. And it was just like, I literally just told you how to make a to-do list. I don't really understand why people are listening. But it's to your point, Lorianne, you have to let the audience decide what they're into. Chris is a really, I may have the marketing background, but he somehow has his finger on the pulse of human behavior, sort of. It must come from his natural sales ability. And he has said this time and time again, and I still use it even to this day when I teach marketing to my team and to people who I help with it. And the answer and the rule across the whole board is it's not for you to decide. Mm-hmm. It's for the audience to decide. And so if you're over here concocting this magic potion that you're stirring up and you're like, oh, I'm going to put a little bit of this, a little bit of that, that's great. Try it. Make mistakes. Don't perfect it. Let it be a turd, if you will. You want to go out of the gates like you're that band, that indie band that all these people are going to start discovering little by little, that then hits the rocket ship one day. But you got to cultivate that with this small group of following of people who are okay listening to you change and make mistakes and evolve and grow and move. I know there's people who would disagree and say, oh, it needs to be polished. You want to put your best foot forward, of course. But this is a wild, wild west. There's no typical number of downloads per week. It's your version of whatever that looks like for you after you've had it up for long enough to look back and look at metrics. So anybody who's trying to, what should I be rooting for? What should I be reaching for? It's reach for the stars, but you cannot compare to other people because it's literally apples and oranges and pears and peaches. Nothing is the same. That's my take. And on that note, I do have to bounce in about 2 minutes. I'm so sorry to leave so early. I have a client meeting me, but I want to do a quick shout out. What's up, Mike Mariag is up in his mug. I got my friend who I invited here today, and I want to say hi to Muriel and everybody else. I just figured out how to find the live comments, so sorry for not doing that. But I'll be better next time. I'm so excited, and I want to thank you, Manny, Philip, and Lorianne for being here and for helping to revive our group. Today's meeting's a little bit of kind of a hodgepodge, but I think it'll be really cool to see more meetings come up that have like a specific, here's how you make money with podcasting, here's how you do this, how do you do that. I think it'll be great, and I hope that everybody watching will tune in.
Yeah, the idea is to have it like last Tuesday of the month. So I hope, but I don't know once the COVID stuff is done, how we're gonna do it, right? So let's see. I'm gonna schedule the next one for the last Tuesday of May, and then we see how it goes from there. Maybe you could talk next time, Laci, and you and your husband.
I just got roped into talking at the next one too. What happened? I thought I got out of this thing. What are you doing to me, Manny?
It's bringing it back.
I would be happy. You would be happy to help with anything you guys need, especially when it comes to marketing. I'm very up on the front of the marketing stuff, so would love to do it. I'm so sorry to leave. I'm enjoying this. I've been like soaking it all up. It's kind of giving me all the good vibes. So thank you, Lorianne, for preparing such a comprehensive program. I hope we're providing that as a download. Are you going to post it in our group?
Yes, we're gonna. Yeah, we're gonna have this presentation also, this video on YouTube and on Facebook, and I guess Lorianne is gonna share also the link to her deck, right?
Yeah, so, I'm totally fine sharing my slides.
I love it. I so appreciate all of you and everybody watching. I feel terrible leaving, but I gotta go. Sorry.
It's all right. Thank
See
you.
you,
Bye, guys.
Laci.
Yeah.
Love you,
Go se-
podcasters.
Laci, go sell a house.
I already did. That's why I'm going to see her. I'll see you later. Bye.
See ya.
Hide the papers. Bye-bye. Alrighty. So yeah, I was saying, the idea is to revive this group online, and Philip is no longer in Vegas, but he can participate. And I don't know how it's gonna be after this. Someone asked, "Oh, how are we gonna do it next month?" So we're gonna, play month by month and see how it goes. Because nobody knows actually what is gonna happen next, right? But yeah, it was great presentations from Lori. And do we have any questions from anyone, or do you have any final arguments or final suggestions? We have a talk event here sometime in the future way somehow. All right. So yeah, someone just made a comment there. So Philip, do you have any final statements?
It comes back to a lot of what everybody's talked about already, and a lot of what was in Lori's presentation. If you haven't started a podcast yet, there's nothing simpler to do. Literally start. I see we talked about it the other day in a test call. I have people all the time, like, in the last few days have sent me email, or in last month have sent me messages in LinkedIn and on Facebook. I can help you start a podcast in 6 months or whatever. I can tell you how to start a podcast in 60 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
That is not difficult. The problem is, can you keep it going for 6 months?
Mm-hmm.
And that's where it becomes tough. And so I would tell anybody, first of all, it's like to me, also a podcast is like a marketing tool. It is basically a business card, just like a Twitter account is, or just like a LinkedIn account is. So if you're sitting here thinking you're going to make $1 million off a podcast, you're on something really, really good. You need to step away from the dispensary.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So this is a business card for you. This is where you show people that your subject.
Mm-hmm.
This is where you create your own. I go with the ums.
It's all right.
You create your own resume here. It's not the word I'm looking for, but it's the only one I can find. What's that?
Your portfolio?
Well, yeah, in a way, your portfolio. But this is where you're building your reputation. This is where you're building your reputation in the subject. So make sure it's something, one, you can talk about forever and always. And just like me and you, Manny, if we start talking about computers and web design and all that, we'd probably go for a while.
Yeah, that's true.
That's kind of where you have to start at. If it's not something you can talk about over and over and over again, and make it exciting for people.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, there are so many. This is such a glut in the marketplace. I saw somebody today post in the group. They're talking about the Oakland Raiders. Great. My family is all from the Bay Area. They follow 5 or 6 people talk in podcasts. One of my cousins is helping a friend move when he stayed next month, because I actually told him to call Laci. His friend is retired. He's older than I am. He's retired, and he's wanting to move to Vegas because he has season tickets to the Raiders. And so my cousin was talking to me that, he wishes I was there to help move boxes. I said, I'm too old for that anymore. Right? So make sure you are interesting first. You, number one, and number 2, your content's interesting, and then go from there.
Cool. How about you, Lorianne? Any final statements for us?
My big final statement, I guess, is done is better than perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Something we mentioned earlier. Just get it out there, get started, and like Philip said, keeping it going is the hardest part. The actual statistic right now is 147 days. So if you get your podcast further than that, you've sort of, broken the barrier there. But stay consistent, make it something that you love, and yeah, just get it out there. It doesn't have to be the most polished, overproduced piece of content ever, because people, they want realness.
Mm-hmm. All right. And if people wants to contact you, Lorianne, how do they can reach you out? Where they can find you?
Everywhere. You can find me here on Facebook under Lorianne Waddell, or my business page is Lorianne Works.
Okay.
And you can always email me at Lorianne@lorianneworks.net. But I'm also on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram. My Instagram's all about my cat mostly. Sorry. She didn't make an appearance. Sorry. And my Twitter is mostly about hockey.
All righty.
Yeah.
How about you, Philip?
If you need to get a hold of me, again, I'm kind of in a down mode because I'm a high school teacher now and a high school football coach, and so good luck. But just drop me a line in the Facebook group. I'll get back to you. And if you need anything in particular, I'll send you out to my LinkedIn account. But just drop me a line in Facebook.
All righty. Thank you very much, everyone. I hope we can do it
Manny,
again.
where can people find you?
Oh well, I don't want them to find me.
All right.
Drop them a line in Facebook.
Yeah, I want to be like just behind the scenes, But yeah, I'm email web everywhere actually.
Okay.
Yeah, on LinkedIn mostly, and I use Facebook and Instagram for personal purposes only, just friends and family, and LinkedIn is more like for business stuff, So yeah, but yeah, I'm on Facebook, I'm on everywhere actually, on Twitch, on everything, everywhere. But yeah, I plan on getting this. If you are watching us, I want to do this again last Tuesday of the month. Probably, I hope you have like great guests like we had today. And this is the Las Vegas Podcasters Meetup online version. And thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.